the Constitution of the United States on a day set aside for the peaceful transfer of power.
Can I rephrase that then? Do you worry, let me rephrase that then. Do you worry at all that there is this chunk of people who decided the work of this committee isn't particularly important?
I don't know. I don't know that. I do not know that. I know that there are people who would like it to go away, some of them in this very Congress, but I don't stipulate to what you have said, no. Yeah, what do you got?
Madam Speaker, I was wondering what the status of the Senate bill to protect Supreme Court justices is in the House.
Well,
your thoughts on Justice Kavanaugh with this?
Right, we had, well, the justices are protected, as you all know. We were awaiting language from the Senate so that we could be completely up to date as to what they wanted to do. That's in the works. Mr. Hoyer's running that show, and if we had hoped that we could do it today, but we certainly will do it at the beginning of next week.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, ma'am.
Cassie Simeon with Spectrum News. California had very low turnout on Tuesday for the election.
Oh, you're talking politics now?
Oh, yes, we're talking politics.
Okay, well, we do that at a minimum under the dome, but anyway.
But I ask you if you worry that the Democrats' message is getting lost when it comes to voters, kind of talking about what Garrett mentioned, do you think people are disinterested in politics due to what's happening?
No, I don't at all. In fact, what I see is something quite different. Now, sitting here in Washington, D.C., you may draw some conclusion based on sitting here in Washington, D.C., but what we see around the country is a real interest in what comes next. They're very concerned about our democracy. They're very concerned about our freedom, whether we're talking about a woman's right to choose or the freedom to walk down the street without, or send their children to school without being endangered. They're very interested in the kitchen table issues, which have always been the heartbeat of the Democratic Party. How we're going to pay the bills, pay the rent, pay for food, pay for education, whatever the subject is. The issues that keep people awake at night are the decisions they make at that kitchen table. So we see something quite different. And I don't stipulate to your characterization of the public mood or yours. I do know that elections that happen now have a lower turnout than those that happen in November, and we expect to have a big turnout in November. And we have absolutely no intention of losing the House.
Madam Speaker.
Yeah, what do you got?
Madam Speaker, the most recent bill that passed yesterday passed on a bipartisan basis. And on top of that, you just had the red flag legislation.
Yeah, and that's bipartisan.
Right, and that's bipartisan too. How do you think that portends for the future of the bills in the Senate, that they can pass on a bipartisan basis? Are you in any contact with any of the senators about it? And how confident are you that that one piece of legislation, it looks like the red flag legislation is going to pass, or there's going to be some red flag laws in the Senate. How positive that...
Well, you know more than I do. I don't know what will come out of the negotiations in the Senate, but I have confidence in those who are negotiating in good faith on both sides of the aisle, and we are eager to see what that will be. Hopefully it will contain some of the measures which we think are life-saving in our legislation, but I don't know what their negotiations are because they are privy to the Senate. Yeah, Jake?
Madam Speaker.
A little bit more. They seem to be talking about red flags, excuse me, school safety, mental health, bolstering the mental health network, incorporating juvenile records into background checks. And that's the broad outline of what they've said.
Is that right?
Yes.
You know more than I do because I don't have that knowledge about what they may do. But I will say this, that if it's life-saving and can make a difference, and they have bipartisan support for it, then we would welcome it, even though it won't be everything that we want. But we cannot have subterfuge. We can't have them say, well, it's about this and it's about that. No, it's about guns. And it's about other things, too. But we cannot avoid the fact that it's about guns, their availability, at what age, and what condition in terms of the person who's yes, sir.
Last question. Do you think that, in light of these hearings that are coming up, do you think that in the fall that democracy, that what happened last January, is on the ballot, or is it these kitchen table pocketbook issues that you mentioned that a lot of Americans are dealing with right now?
Thank you so much for asking a substantive question. It's so refreshing. Yes. Who let you in here? I don't know. I think it's always about the kitchen table issues because these are what moves somebody to vote. Yes, it's about our democracy that is on the ballot. They assaulted the Capitol. They are undermining the elections by voter suppression and nullification of elections and the rest. And people expect us to take care of that, but they really want to know what we are doing in their interest and how they can manage for their families. It's always been about that. It's always been about the kitchen table issues, and that's what the Democratic Party is. No corporate boardroom table, but the kitchen table. So as you have seen, we have passed legislation in the rescue package that put money in people's pockets with the child tax credit, got children safely in school, people safely back to work, shots in arms at a time when we had to move quickly to do so. And again, now what we're talking about is how we can lower cost. When you have, this president has overseen 8 million jobs created. Now, the private sector plays a major role in that. But this is historic. No president can make this claim that in this short period of time, nearly 8 million jobs were created. Unemployment was reduced in half. Wages have gone up. Many families now say into the 70s they no longer fear a $400 emergency. It was that high before that they did fear a $400 emergency would upset their whole monthly budgeting. So things have improved, but inflation has gone up, and we must address that because the cost of food and the price at the pump. Now, the price at the pump is affected by shortages, some of it caused by Putin. Part of this is Putin's price at the pump. Not all of it, but much of it. When you have lower supply, you have higher costs. That's just the way it is. So we have to recognize it. We have to mitigate for it. And that's part of what we have been doing, but we'll continue to do next week when we address the cost of food and agriculture, making it less expensive for farmers. For example, fertilizer. Fertilizer largely comes from Russia and places like that. So it's more expensive to farmers to have fertilizer, increase their costs, increase the cost of food. So it's so much of this is connected. You cannot separate what's happening in Ukraine from the price at the pump or the cost of fertilizer. On the other hand, you have to address it. And I think elections, to your question, are always about that. Our responsibility is to protect our democracy. It's the oath of office we take to protect and defend the Constitution. And all that implies, the freedoms that go with that, whether that's a woman's right to choose or all the other things that are exposed because of this decision, where they're questioning the value of privacy in our Constitution, whether they're questioning precedent in terms of actions of the Supreme Court. It's important. Dispositive of the vote is what happens at the kitchen table.
So it sounds like you think that's going to be a bigger issue for voters, the referendum on how Democrats have handled these issues, as opposed to whether or not the form of
It's not as opposed. No, it's not as opposed.
But a bigger
No, it's not as opposed. I'm just saying what people think about our country is one thing. Look at the polls. How many people support raising the minimum wage? 75%, 80%? How many percent? Gun violence protection in terms of the legislation we're talking about, 75, 80%. How many people support so many things that we're talking about? Is it dispositive of their vote? That's really the question. So yes, people are concerned. It may be contribute to how they decide, but as James Carville said, it's the economy, stupid. No offense to you, I'm just quoting him. Just quoting him. It is always what that is about. And this president has been just a champion for America's working families. He's been a champion on the kitchen table issues. And that's what campaigns are about, to get the message out. So we will be mobilizing at the grassroots level, owning the ground with a message of hope and optimism for the people, and again, with the intellectual, personal, and other resources necessary to do so. I feel pretty positive about it all. I'm optimistic, and I always am, but it is essential that not only that we win that argument at the polls, but we win that argument in the policy debate as well, because it is for the people, for the children. Thank you for your question. Thank you.
How can you say that the justices are protected when there was an attempt on Justice Kavanaugh's life? You said the justices are protected, but there was an attempt on Justice Kavanaugh's life.
It's protected. The justices are protected. This issue is not about the justices. It's about staff and the rest. The justices are protected. The Attorney General even doubled down on that.
But this is about security for the justices. An armed man showed up near Justice Kavanaugh's house to try to...
We're working together on the bill that the Senate will be able to approve of, because that's what we can pass whatever we want here. We want it to be able to pass the Senate. So I don't know what you're talking about, because evidently you haven't seen what the debate is. Not debate, but what the language is. There will be a bill, but nobody is in danger over the weekend because of our not having a bill.
Keenan, you want to check it? Not yet. Not that I know of. Still a little early. Yeah. 1098-765-4321. House Radio TV 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. All good, Can? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. 1098-765-4321. 1 2